Hello everyone, I'm John Fife, one of the contracting officers assigned to the U.S. Transcom Contract Airlift Division. Our office is responsible for writing and administering the $100+ million contract for transporting our military passengers and cargo all over the world. We can't successfully pilot this magnificent contract without the technical prowess of our contracting officer representatives on the ground. Your methodic surveillance of these airline carrier missions ensures our military, their families, and our government cargo reach its destination expeditiously and without failure. This training will familiarize you with the CRAF contract, the tools you will use for surveillance, and the support you can expect from our office to help us successfully manage the Civil Reserve Airlift contract. The agenda for this training will cover important topics such as the contract format and why it's written the way it is, the duties required by you as a corps assigned to the CRAF contract, the standards of conduct you must maintain while performing your duties, the guiding principles of service delivery summaries and using them for performance violations, the documentation and tools used to perform your job, submitting the documentation to our office for adjudication, a discussion on performance delays in relation to passenger care for controllable and uncontrollable delays, the written standard for transporting pets, catering and making sure what our passengers are eating is safe and acceptable, and finally, the files you will maintain and what you can expect if the TCAQ team comes to your station for inspection. The CRAF contract is written as a performance-based service contract. In simple terms, that just means that we wrote the contract telling the contractor what we want, and then we allow them, as the experts in the industry, to perform the service as they know how to, and the government performs surveillance to ensure the service meets our standards. If we allow the contractor such freedom to carry out the tasks identified in the contract performance work statement, how do we know that the contractor is providing an acceptable level of service? This is where our service delivery summaries come into play. The service delivery summaries are the critical points in the service that must happen to ensure success and avoid contract failure. The government writes the SDS to identify the action and the level of performance the contractor must meet in order to attain acceptable standards. The SDS is a definitive guideline for our corps to perform surveillance on the carriers. If the carrier is not meeting the standard of the SDS, then the corps will issue a violation using the Quality Assurance Surveillance Plan Form 166B, which I will cover in the following presentation slides. The Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation defines a corps as a designated individual to perform technical and administrative functions on a contract to accomplish surveillance on a contractor and ultimately ensure successful and acceptable performance of the contract. A corps must be appointed and terminated in writing by a warranted contracting officer in order to formally perform surveillance on the contract. The corps is considered the technical liaison, using their knowledge and skill and working in unison with the contracting officer to ensure the government gets what it paid for. As a corps, you will observe the contractor performance ensuring contract requirements are met, coordinating with carrier crews, ground representatives, and caterers. You will conduct and document surveillance using approved contract forms like the 166A and 166B, the PWS, SDS, and the QUASP, and you will submit that surveillance through the automated court system. When issues arise pertaining to contractor performance, you must contact our office, especially when extended delays dealing with passengers. With all this surveillance, you must be careful not to direct the contractor to perform anything outside the scope of the contract, as corps do not have the authority to do so. Only a contracting officer can change the contract and direct the contractor to deviate from the contract. Most times, a contractor will assume a corps has the authority to change the terms of the contract and will comply with directions. However, the contractor will more than likely submit a claim to our office for costs incurred for that change. So it is very important not to direct the contractor to deviate in any way. When in doubt, contact one of us contracting officers in TCAQ office and we will determine the best course of action. As a corps, you are put in a position of influence over the contractor. Every action you take ties into the contractor's bottom line. In this position, you must avoid any appearance of improprieties or unethical behavior. Do not accept gratuities from the contractor, and this includes non-monetary gratuities such as favors or special treatment. Be careful with off-duty employment and make sure if you do work a second job, it is not affiliated to any of the carriers you conduct surveillance on in this contract. When you interact with the contractor, don't be afraid to discuss the situation with them, especially if it is a potential violation. Document everything on your CRAF forms and submit to the TCAQ office for adjudication. The contracting officer will decide what is the appropriate action. The contract calls for 50% of the awarded missions to be inspected. In order to meet this mark, our office develops a monthly schedule assigning missions to each station. If your station misses an assigned mission, contact our office and we will assign a replacement mission. Everything you write in your surveillance of this contract becomes a part of the official contract file. The government retains their contracts for many years, meaning 10 years from now, a judge could be reading what you wrote on a specific mission to determine a judgment. Please ensure that you are writing professionally, paying attention to grammar and spelling. The DoD has mandated that the Contracting Officer Representative Tracker Tool be the primary tool for all Defense Corps documented surveillance. You must be appointed in writing by a contracting officer in court to be considered an official corps for the CRAF contract. If you have 4 corps assigned to your station for the CRAF contract, all 4 need to be nominated and appointed by a contracting officer in court. If you are not currently an active corps in court, just let me know by calling or sending me an email with the information from this slide. Court will hold and maintain all corps appointment and profiles and also be used to submit all 166A and 166B documents. Training certificates will be loaded under the Corps' profile, and it is the responsibility of the Corps to ensure the training remains current. The CLM 003 Ethics and DoD Trafficking in Persons training must be taken on an annual basis, while the CLC 106 Core training must be accomplished every 3 years. The CRAF COR training must also be maintained on an annual basis. The Service Delivery Summary is the critical point in the contract where service must not fail. In Section 2 of the PWS, the government categorizes the SDS into a critical, major, and minor section. If a carrier gets a violation under the critical, it counts as 2 violation points, with a major counting as 1 and a minor counting as 0.33. In each section, the government identifies a specific service that must be carried out with a PWS reference for clarification. The performance threshold identifies the failure point, and the surveillance method specifies how the government will inspect. Most of the time, the method will be 50% periodic inspection. This method allows a random sampling that makes it unpredictable for the carrier to plan for. The SDS categorizes are listed on the QASP and the 166A for easy reference during on-site inspection. The QASP Form 166A is the primary tool for the Corps to perform surveillance on the carriers. The form is broken out in 3 sections for the Corps to complete. The top portion is for the mission information, to include carrier, mission number, and tail number. The middle portion contains the SDS line items with an area rating of SAT, unsat, and not applicable. Any unsat rating requires a QASP Form 166B to be submitted. The bottom portion allows for the Corps to elaborate on any unsat issue, along with a place for the Corps to digitally sign the document. Once this form is complete, the Corps must upload through the court system. The QASP Form 166B is the violation form, which is used in conjunction with the QASP Form 166A. Again, any unsat issue on the 166A should garner a 166B form. The top portion allows for the details of the mission, such as mission number, carrier, and tail number. The next portion allows for up to 3 violations to be listed with a PWS reference and SDS categories such as critical, major, or minor. Right below is a small area for the Corps to provide a brief narrative of the violation. Remember, be brief and concise. The remainder of the document is used for the carrier to review and respond to the violation, and the bottom is used for the contracting officer's final determination of the violation. The 166B is submitted by the Corps through court, and remember, when in doubt, submit a violation and the contracting officer will determine if it is a valid one. The customer feedback form is relatively new and will be assigned to random stations with the monthly Corps schedules. TCAQ will randomly assign 5 stations every month to complete this form. The form will be used at terminating passenger missions where the Corps will approach 3 passengers, preferably when they are waiting for their luggage. The form allows for 3 passengers to provide feedback on how they were processed, their meals, meal timing, and any other general comments they wish to provide. At the bottom of the form, the Corps makes a determination on the comments whether or not a violation is warranted. The form can be filled out and signed in ink, scanned in, and submitted through court. The data obtained from these forms is used for trend data and is briefed at the 4-star level at US Transcom and AMC. Not every situation can be rectified on the scene, which is why it is important for the Corps to document the situation and allow the contracting officer to determine whether or not it is a valid violation. Safety violations always should be documented and, if possible, prevented before someone is hurt. If a safety violation takes place, document everything clearly and quickly send to the TCAQ office through the court tool or direct email. Submit all documents through court under the Miscellaneous Documents section using a naming convention as displayed on the slide. This naming convention helps us organize hundreds of inspection forms from 23 stations around the world. Never hesitate to call our office on the numbers displayed. The 6414 number rings on everyone's phone, and the 2369 number is the duty officer's cell phone. The duty officer can be reached after duty hours for contractual issues. Please do not call this number for a routine issue or questions that can wait until the next duty day. Only call if there's a contractual issue such as passenger care or directing the contractor to deviate. The duty officer receives calls from around the world at all times throughout the night, so please make sure it is important enough to wake this person. Lastly, TCAQ has an organizational email for Corps to send correspondence. All members of our team monitor this email and will respond to your issue promptly. A big misconception in the field is what is the contractor responsible for during a controllable and uncontrollable delay. In the contract, it specifies that during a controllable delay, a contractor is responsible for all passengers boarded on the aircraft and those that are manifested. The contractor must provide hot meals, billeting, and transportation to billeting. The contracting officer can direct the carrier to purchase commercial transportation for delays over 24 hours. However, this would be for mission-critical personnel. Mission-critical personnel are defined as personnel on emergency leave or other pressing urgencies. The contractor is responsible for all passengers boarded on their aircraft during an uncontrollable delay, such as weather or government caused. The carrier will provide hot meals, billeting, and transportation for these folks. However, they are not responsible for any passengers on en route, turnaround, or passengers not boarded at originating stations. The contracting officer can direct the carrier to care for passengers at en route or turnaround stations on a reimbursable basis for an uncontrollable delay. As a Corps, you need to make sure the carrier is taking care of the passengers in accordance with the contract and provide any assistance they may need. As military families travel from station to station, they take their pets along with them. As a Corps, you will be on occasion asked if the passengers can exceed what they are allowed in regards to pets, whether it is in size, weight, or quantity. This slide depicts the different carriers, aircraft, and pet capacity that is allowed on the aircraft. Our office does not have the authority to increase the pets booked on a given mission. The AMC A4TP office is the appropriate authority to make this request, and approvals are heavily scrutinized and rarely, if ever, approved. Aircraft pet holding areas are oxygen regulated and climate controlled, and any increases to this area puts all pets at risk of injury and death. If the carrier chooses to accept any increase to the pet quantity, the carrier does so at their own risk. Please document any situation or deviation with pets and submit to our office as it has become a growing concern with leadership. All carriers that operate under the CRAF contract must provide food from approved caterers. An approved caterer is a food source that has been submitted by the carrier, inspected by the Army Public Health Command, and deemed as a clean and safe source for food. All approved caterers are listed on the Army-approved website as described in the contract PWS. Corps are encouraged to validate caterers with this website. As a Corps, it is your responsibility to ensure that our carriers are using approved caterers and the meals offered are commensurate with commercial airline practices. In accordance with the contract, all Corps are authorized to sample the meals on any given mission. If the carrier refuses to provide samples, then you must issue a violation. If you are ever in doubt of the quality or quantity of food, issue a QOSP Form 166B violation form and submit pictures of unacceptable meals if possible. These pictures depict acceptable meals and snacks. As you can see, there's an abundance of food and different varieties of protein, fruit, and grain. These pictures depict unacceptable meal and snack choices. Ask yourself if bologna sandwiches and cookies count as a meal if you were flying on this flight, and make the determination. During all delays, and especially extended delays, the Corps needs to ensure that the passengers are being taken care of, especially when it comes to meals and the timing of those meals. If an aircraft breaks down or is held up due to weather, there's a lot of chaos going on with the carrier coordinating billeting, transportation, and other issues. In these situations, the passengers don't get fed for sometimes up to 8 to 10 hours. As a Corps, you must contact the carrier representative and find out when the passengers last ate and when their next meal is scheduled. The carrier is allowed to use catered meals on the plane as a passenger hot meal. If the carrier fails to feed the passengers in the time specified by the contract PWS, the Corps must issue a violation and contact the TCAQ office. As technology takes over and automation becomes more prevalent in our day-to-day lives, the less hard copy files we find ourselves maintaining on a daily basis. After the DoD mandated the use of the CORT tool for all Corps operating on a DoD contract, about 95% of the Corps files are now maintained on the computer or through CORT. The only hard copy documents the Corps should have is a current copy of the PWS, and the Corps should also carry the PWS with them while inspecting the aircraft should any clarifications come up. All surveillance, memos, and training forms pertaining to the contract or Corps will be maintained in the CORT system. All Corps should also have a copy of the U.S. Transcom Instruction 63-5 dated March of 2016. This instruction details the core program for the CRAF contract. Our office travels at least annually to all stations inspecting the CRAF mission to perform a contract surveillance visit. This visit allows us to help the Corps with their surveillance program, as well as train and alleviate any issues. When we show up at your station, we expect to meet with all the Corps and government stakeholders to include leadership if they wish to meet with us. We would like to be briefed on your core program and, more importantly, listen to any problems you may be having with the CRAF program. We would like to be escorted on the flight line to see all operations and would like the opportunity to take photos if possible. Upon return from our trip, we create a trip report and range ride report, which is viewed by U.S. Transcom leadership. In this report, we tell our leadership the great job you are doing and also provide any problems or barriers that you may be facing so that they may be able to help with the situation. Our carriers assigned to the CRAF contract fly over 50,000 passengers annually and deliver 500,000 pounds of cargo worldwide. Whether it is an exercise, a humanitarian crisis, or a military deployment, this contract directly impacts what we do as a nation 24/7 worldwide. But the most crucial piece to this contract is you, the Corps, the eyes and ears on the ground, the technical experts ensuring that these missions do not fail. Thank you for your tireless efforts, and together we deliver.